Meiman. Me, an animated superhero. Introduction. Rosen wore it and traveled to the Marvel world. When he opened his system and found that it was full of cartoons, he expressed some panic. The picture of Big Ears Big Head Son and Little Head Dad Garden Baby Rosen is speechless. Will he have to rely on these to save the world when the destruction of the tyrant arrives? Isn't this clearly making things difficult for him, Makabaka? But when he continued to look down, he found that there were also 7 diamond Gourd babies and son Wukong, the great sage of Tian, who caused a commotion in the heavenly palace, and with the top-notch combat power of Chinese anime, it can destroy planets with one strike and devour the multiverse of hurricane souls. Rosen's life and the entire Marvel world began to undergo earth-shattering changes. Chapter 1. Fast Food Truck. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. New York. Manhattan District. Zila. On the hot iron plate, a meat cake is being roasted under high temperature, emitting a tempting aroma. Rosen in the dining car holds a spatula and occasionally flips the meat patties based on the heat. After a moment, the meat patty was cooked. Rosen took 2 pieces of bread, followed by bread, meat patties, tomato sauce, mustard, and 2 portions of onions, lettuce, cheese, tomatoes. Finally, he skillfully operated the bread in this order and quickly completed an order. This is your mixed burger. After handing out the hamburger, Rosen turned to another customer and said, "Sorry, could you please wait a moment? Today is really busy." After speaking, Rosen picked up the spatula again and began to get busy. It wasn't until about half an hour later that he finally saw off the last customer. It was then that he had time to sit down and relax, remove his hair net, and wipe his sweaty forehead with a white towel. It's another bountiful day. Counting the bills in the money box, Rosen had a faint joy on his face. It said that setting up a stall is hard, but doing this is really making money. The purchase of licenses and dining cars in the early stage indeed requires a considerable amount of money, but once the dining car is driven to the street and officially starts operating, it is like standing in a pile of money raking money. "Hey, can I have a luxurious cocktail burger? It's in a hurry." Upon hearing another customer come to his door, Rosen quickly put the money into his pocket and responded, "Okay, here we go." He stood up and wiped his hands on his apron. Just as he was about to cook, he saw the familiar face. "Fox, how could it be you?" That's right, standing in front of Rosen is his old acquaintance, Fox, who works in the same company. "You should be aware that people like us wouldn't easily meet without special circumstances, right?" Rosen said, his hands moving non-stop. Accompanied by the sizzling sound of hot oil, soon a luxurious mixed burger was freshly served, and Fox didn't hesitate to take a big bite. While chewing, he muttered, "I really don't understand why you still drive a dining car. Is the salary from the textile factory not enough for your expenses?" The textile factory mentioned by Fox is the company that she and Rosen worked for together, located in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York, surrounded by the Easter River, opposite the Brooklyn Naval Shipyard, which is a long-standing company. The company's main business seems to be textiles, but in reality it is a killer guild led by its leader Morgan Sloan, with Fox being one of the ace assassins. As for Rosen, although he is also one of them, his status is far inferior to Fox, just a low-level, second and third-rate member of the guild. Actually, Rosen didn't want to be a killer at first. Unfortunately, fate plays tricks on people. Speaking of which, Rosen's experience was similar to that of Superman next door, both of which suddenly descended into this world in a baby-like manner. However, unlike Superman, Rosen is not so lucky. He did not descend through any spacecraft, nor was he located on a farm in Kansas. His new body is not a Kryptonian, nor does it have any superpowers. It is just an ordinary dance night abandoned baby, without parents, born in the trash can. If it weren't for the fact that the king of Bowery Street happened to pass by and heard crying and found him, and pulled him out, it was likely that Rosen's Marvel journey would have ended before it even began. Afterwards in the gang of Bowery Street, Rosen grew up little by little, underwent rigorous training, and gradually became a killer. In fact, Rosen was completely forced and helpless. He received the life-saving grace of the king of Bowery Street, and was also in the enemy's headquarters, with every move under supervision. It can be said that his life was completely at the mercy of others. To survive, one can only obey the orders of the king of Bowery Street, gradually transitioning from a previously unhealthy worker who was panting even after running a kilometer to a current elementary school student in the assassin world, codenamed Cleaner, an unknown assassin. Of course, Rosen doesn't have much to complain about either. He saved his life and taught a whole set of skills, which can be said to be the utmost benevolence and righteousness. Once again, there's nothing wrong with being a killer. In this industry, as long as you hook your fingers and gently pull the trigger, you can reap tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars of lush green knives, which can be called a lucrative industry. Therefore, Rosen quickly secured his position and accepted his new destiny. In addition to these, there is also an important factor that affects Rosen's ability to become a killer, which is, name. Rosen Tanatos, age. 26 years old, skills. Firearms proficiency, intermediate, close combat, junior, possessing props. 1 fairy bean of Karen Fairy, 1 prisoner tracking glasses of Idagoa Conan, with a sticker transmitter attached, as the saying goes, if God closes a door for you, he will open a window for you. Rosen doesn't have the innate talent of Superman, but he has a path to becoming Superman. After a simple exploration, Yu reading www.uukangshu.net quickly figured out the function of this system. According to his understanding, his system does not have any mandatory tasks or artificial intelligence, only a long progress bar marked with a $10 million mark. That is to say, he can recharge all the money he earns in reality into the system. When the recharge amount accumulates to $10 million, a lottery will be opened. The prizes in the prize pool are numerous animated films he has watched in his past life, such as the fairy beans he received before, which came from a small animated book called 7 Dragon Balls. Why do I always feel that this system is a bit strange? For his own system of demanding money, Rosen always had an inexplicable sense of recognition, as if he had played a game from a big company in his past life. However, having is always better than not having. Therefore, in order to live as long as possible in this dangerous Marvel world, Rosen made every effort to complete each killer commission and then deposited the hard-earned money into the system. Killer commissions don't happen every day, so Rosen can only consider developing a side job. At first, he wanted to become a copywriter and bring music and movies from his past life to this world. However, after carefully understanding it, he realized that the entertainment industry here is so developed, and almost everything that was not in his past life has appeared. Unless he moves Marvel movies here. But can Rosen do this? Dare he do it? In the end, due to his mastery of skills and the convenience of being a killer, Rosen chose the bright career of driving a fast food truck. Hey, Rosen, when exactly are you going to be distracted? P.S. Pure newcomers, kneeling down to collect and recommend. Chapter 2. Very brave O. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at Rosen, whose eyes unconsciously drifted outward and his thoughts drifted somewhere, Fox cursed in his heart in dissatisfaction. Holly SXXT, Rosen, are you blind? Fox lowered his head to look at his outfit today, wearing a fiery red long dress tightly attached to his body. His slender waist and round hips formed a perfect curve, not to mention the 2 stunning white peaks. It was definitely a presence that any man could not help but feel their blood pumping at a glance. Fox has absolute confidence in his beauty, as evidenced by the aggressive gazes from passers-by around him. But in front of him, Rosen not only didn't take a few more glances, but also his eyes were bewildered and constantly distracted, which made Fox inevitably want to curse out loud. Alright, Rosen, I'm here to ask if you're available tonight. Considering the purpose of this trip, coupled with Rosen's tough, handsome, and absolutely convincing handsome face, Fox calmed his restless thoughts and asked with a smile, "Do you want to have dinner together? I think we can have a good chat." "Forget it." Rosen hesitated for a moment and then shook his head, expressing his refusal. He did indeed have a period with Fox, which was a joint mission where a lonely man and a widow lived together in the same room, and both of them looked good. Everything that should have happened and everything that shouldn't have happened naturally happened. But over time, Rosen felt a bit overwhelmed. Fox has a very strong personality and plans to further his relationship, but how could Lawson agree? He has a systematic secret and cannot seek a fixed partner. By the way, if he really became a pair with Fox, Sloane, that old guy, would definitely be happy to see it happen and would love to use this relationship to make the two subordinates act recklessly until they die. "Let's talk about your true purpose, Fox. Is there a new commission or is there some trouble in the guild?" Rosen said, using a shovel to remove the batter from the frying pan, which was very obvious. If Fox didn't get serious anymore, he would have to close the stall and leave. "Okay." Fox felt resentful, but the matter was still important. With a solemn expression, he spoke up and said, "You guessed it right. The news you received this morning is that the cross has defected." "Has the cross defected?" Rosen, who had watched a movie in his past life, was aware of the plot, but in order to show shock, he deliberately gave it a scolding before continuing with the cleaning of the frying pan and asked a low question. "Is the news true?" "Of course." Fox was not surprised by Rosen's shock, as when she first heard the news this morning, her own performance was not much better. After all, it's really surprising that an assassin chooses to defect to an organization, especially the ace assassin within an organization like the Cross. He's really... Rosen hesitated to speak, even though he knew the plot, he couldn't help but admire the choice of the Cross and marvel at his bravery. After all, in the field of assassins, it is impossible to follow a routine and work until retirement. If you want to quit, unless you're dead. Either by some accident, the organization was destroyed by other forces. But the second situation is usually difficult to occur. That's why many assassins choose to feign death and escape due to various factors such as love and family ties. And the Cross, this fierce man, actually chose to openly betray and even showed his horses and carriages to fight against the guild. It's really like the old birthday star eating arsenic. He's tired of his work. How about considering my invitation? Staring intently at Rosen, Fox deliberately extended his tongue and lightly licked his plump lips, saying, "My house is quite big. After dinner, I'll go straight to bed. With me around, there's absolutely no safety issue." "Thank you for your kindness, Fox." Rosen shrugged and said, "But let's forget it. I prefer living alone, and you should have left. Standing here has already attracted too much unnecessary attention." Speaking, Rosen gestured to the other party to look around. Indeed, a typical American sex bomb like Fox should appear in high-end Western restaurants, rather than standing in front of a small dining car, disregarding its image and gnawing on greasy burgers in the wind. Fox's invitation failed again and he had to leave alone. She held her breath and walked towards the red Dodge Viper sports car parked on the side of her road. When she wanted to open the driver's door, she realized that she was still holding the unfinished hamburger in her hand. "Fuck you. Rosen, fuck you." Angry, Fox threw the hamburger to the ground. Unable to get angry, Fox gritted his teeth and stomped on the burger with the thin heels of his high heels before slowly calming down his frustration. He opened the car door and sat in, roaring loudly before leaving. "Well, if I had known earlier, I would have endured it all night." Looking at the muddy burger, Rosen shook his head with a cold, which was the reason why he refused Fox's invitation. There's no way, he really can't beat this woman. As one of the ace assassins of the guild, Fox, like the Cross, has a special ability where their hearts can jump 400 times per minute, allowing them to enter a mysterious, bullet-like state. In this state, they can use pistols to shoot down the wings of flying flies, and Yu can jump from a building several tens of meters away to another building. After training, they can also use guns to shoot in arcs, and even shoot to intercept another bullet. In the Marvel world, if it were in Rosen's past life, Newton's coffin would not be able to cover it. The cross is looking for me. It's really a joke. Rosen smiled and shook his head. As someone who understands the plot, the biggest advantage is being able to act in advance. So, he has always been a good person in the guild and never conflicts with others. Furthermore, he also knew why the cross had defected. Even if the other party wanted to trouble the assassins in the guild, they would start with the top few, such as Fox, X, and the Butcher. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of valuable phone sharing and premature exposure of oneself? However, it's better for me to go home early. After a simple cleaning, Rosen wiped his hands and decided to close the stall and go home. He thinks according to the normal way of thinking, but who can guarantee that the cross must think so? Rosen understood and planned to go home first, temporarily avoiding the limelight, and then come out to take action when the plot develops to the appropriate level. Just as he was about to prepare to return home, a black figure appeared at the window of the dining car. Sorry, it's already closed today. The other person was wearing a duckbill hat with a very low brim, and Rosen couldn't see the person's face clearly. He was alert and quietly moved his hand towards the gun pocket at his waist. If I were you, I wouldn't choose to do that. The man with a duckbill cap spoke in a low voice, then lifted his head to let Rosen see his true face. P.S. Pure newcomers, kneeling down to collect and recommend. Chapter 3. Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rosen obediently stopped moving because he recognized the face, and if his memory was correct, it was the cross that Fox had spoken of as having defected from the guild. Rosen had already regretted not agreeing to Fox's invitation. After all, agreeing would only result in being cruelly squeezed by the other party for a whole night, suffering his unlucky waste. But now facing the cross, there is a real danger of dying at any time. However, Rosen couldn't figure it out. He thought that according to the development of the movie plot, Fox, who was ordered to find Wesley, the biological son of the cross, was the one targeted by the cross. This is also the reason why Rosen refused Fox's invitation. But how could the cross not play cards according to common sense? If you come to find me, what should your son Wesley do? Will Wesley fall into the wolf's nest of the textile factory like this? Rosen had a lot to ask, but he didn't show it. He just stared quietly at the cross to see what the other person wanted to do. Hey, we're all old friends now. Don't you invite me to try a hamburger? The cross smiled and said, behaving like an old friend. Rosen, however, didn't take it seriously at all. He stared at the hand that had been holding the cross in his pocket. After a while, he nodded and smiled, saying, it's a coincidence that you came. Only the last ingredient is left. This was originally prepared for me. The gas grill once again emitted a blue flame, and the remaining temperature of the frying plate was quickly heated to the appropriate temperature. Rosen's movements remained unchanged, just like dealing with ordinary customers. He quickly cooked a luxurious mixed burger, sealed it in a paper bag, and handed it to the hands of the cross. The last one, it seems like today is really my lucky day. The cross took the paper bag and did not choose to eat the hamburger. Instead, it held it in its hand and continued, do you know, Rosen? The 17th textile factory used to be different from what it is now. The cross didn't eat the hamburger, and Rosen felt a little regretful. The cyanide he had just quietly placed in the burger seems to have gone down in vain now. Disappointed in his heart, Rosen's face did not show any signs of expression. He continued to smile, cooperating with the cross and saying, is that so? I only joined 6 years ago, and I really don't know much about the guild's past situation. If there's a chance today, I'll tell you. Regardless of whether Rosen agrees or not, or whether he is willing or unwilling to listen, the cross with one hand in his pocket tells the history of the textile factory on his own. At the deepest part of the guild, there is a huge textile machine, which we call the Fate Textile Machine. 1,000 years ago, a weaver family discovered a code hidden in a weaving machine. They transformed the distribution of cotton threads errors into binary code by observing the flaws on the fabric. After translation, they obtained a name, which is the will of God and the person they must kill, in order to maintain the normal order of the chaotic world. And this is also the origin of the Brotherhood, now known as the 17th Textile Factory. The more the cross spoke, the more excited it became, and the more it spoke, the more it couldn't control its emotions. It was like a devout believer being offended by a deity, angrily rebuking, "But Sloane, he has gone against his own destiny." The cross put the paper bag containing the hamburger back into the dining car, and took out a small piece of fabric from its pocket, which was translated as the name of the guild leader Morgan Sloane. He couldn't accept his name appearing on the loom, so he began to create his own goals for his own benefit. You, Fox, and the rest of the guild became accomplices to this damn fear of death, becoming a tool for him to absorb filthy wealth. I understand. Rosen handed the fabric back and said, "So you're here today to join me in the fight against the textile factory." "That's right." The cross carefully collected the fabric and said sincerely, "The world shouldn't be like this, and being a person shouldn't be like this, Rosen. Because of Sloane, you and I have all betrayed fate, but since we know the truth, we must not make the same mistake again. Join me, you, me, and Fox. Together, we can definitely defeat Sloane and maintain the chaotic order of fate's spinning machine." This is using me as a microphone. It wasn't until then that Rosen suddenly understood everything in his mind. Don't be fooled by what the cross says, the three of them can overthrow the assassin of an entire textile factory. In fact, the only person that the cross values from beginning to end is Fox. As both ace assassins in the guild, Fox ranks third in strength, with only the cross and Mr. X slightly surpassing her by a few points. The cross came to find Rosen, only interested in the good friend relationship between Rosen and Fox, hoping to tell the truth to Fox, who also had faith but was kept in the dark, through Rosen's mouth. As for why the cross took so much trouble to explain to Fox in person. Because in that case, Fox wouldn't give the cross a chance to open its mouth. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net only knows how to draw a gun and shoot, making it impossible to open fire. I will convey your words to Fox. After a moment of silence, Rosen said, however, how Fox chooses and whether she believes it is entirely her own business. Rosen didn't mention his own choice, but the cross didn't do it for that either. After getting the answer he wanted, the cross nodded, unbuttoned the brim of its duckbill cap, covered its face, and quickly left. When leaving, the cross didn't take the hamburger, as if he had already noticed something. Rosen didn't pay much attention, just silently threw the hamburger into the trash can in the car, tidied everything up again, got into the driver's cab, started the car, and drove back home. On the peaceful journey, Rosen safely returned to his rented apartment building, greeted the landlord with a smile, and after paying the rent for the month, he took out the key and poked open the door, returning to his warm little nest. Ha! Trapped in the sofa, Rosen took a deep breath. His back was covered in cold sweat, and his clothes were wet and sticky to his body. This uncomfortable feeling made him stand up and walk towards the bathroom. Wow! The sound of water echoed in the bathroom, and steam gradually diffused. A layer of white mist slowly climbed up the glass door. Rosen stood in the bathroom, closing his eyes and looking up to face the flowing water, trying to sort out his restless thoughts and analyze the next steps. Sure enough, people just can't stand casually. He just felt that the cross wouldn't trouble him, and the cross immediately appeared. The big mouth hit him, and his face was swollen. P.S. Pure newcomers, kneeling down to collect and recommend. Chapter 4. Number 17 Textile Factory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The sound of water in the bathroom kept echoing, and Rosen was full of thoughts. He didn't pay any attention to the truth about the guild that the cross told him. What fate? What chaotic order? It's all bullshit. It's all about taking money to kill. Why do you think you're noble? Under the guise of practicing justice for the heavens, one can kill without any psychological burden. Such a self-righteous person is actually the most repulsive. At least, Rosen himself is disgusted with such people. He admits that he is not a good person, but at least he is honest and straightforward. As a killer, he wants to make money for himself, not for any illusory righteousness. Moreover, telling Fox the truth is not in my interest. Turn off the shower. Rosen wiped off the water droplets on his body, wrapped his lower body in a towel, and walked out of the bathroom. Although he appears to be the assassin of the 17th Textile Factory, his true foundation is actually belonging to the assassin organization that raised him on Bowley Street. And choosing to join the 17th Textile Factory is also to complete an impossible task, attempting to break away from the control of the organization and completely return to freedom. Yes, like the cross, Rosen also has the idea of leaving the organization. Although there are many conveniences available within an organization, while enjoying the benefits, one must also dedicate their loyalty and obey the orders of the organization's leaders. Otherwise, it is a violation of the rules and will be pursued by all members of the organization. So, since Rosen grew up and became capable of self-protection, he has been planning to find ways to quit the organization. But he knew that the act of direct defection, like the cross, was pure seeking death. Therefore, he chose another path, another traditional path. To complete an impossible task. It was also Rosen's good luck that after he confessed to the king of Bowery Street, he happened to encounter such a task. In the world of assassins, there is a supreme governing body, which is the maker of the rules of the world of assassins, and that is the High Table. Under the High Table, there are other killer organizations of all sizes. For example, Bowley Street, to which Rosen belongs, is one of them. But most of these small killer organizations have already shown loyalty to the High Table, although the closeness and loyalty between themselves and the High Table are not strong, they still need to follow the rules set by the High Table. This is also a helpless move made by small and medium-sized organizations in order to survive. The 17th Textile Factory is different. The textile factory led by Sloan is very tough. They never listen to the instructions of the High Table, stand on their own, and wander on the edge of the rules of the High Table. In theory, for such an disobedient person, a High Table must do something to maintain their authority. But due to the extraordinary combat power of the textile factory assassins, and also because the textile factory never expands outward and does not want its strength to be greatly damaged, it has to act like a blind person, pretending to see nothing. However, the recent wind direction seems to be incorrect. The textile factory, which has been running a small circle and playing games on its own, suddenly went crazy with cross-border orders and expanded its influence. This immediately caught the attention of the High Table again, and this blatant provocative behavior was beyond our control. So the High Table issued a reward: whoever can eradicate the 17th Textile Factory can take over this land. This bounty cannot be said to be not generous, but contrary to the norm, no assassin has chosen to take the order. That's right, just the killers who turned bullets in the textile factory, who went crazy to take orders. Taking out a can of chilled beer from the refrigerator, Rosen pulled open the tab and took a big gulp of it. The famous legendary assassin and god of killing John Wick once took on similar missions to break away from the organization. But what he faced was only a killer organization composed of ordinary people, who suffered serious injuries and relied on the help of others to not lose their lives. Nowadays, facing a textile factory with special abilities, even though the High Table has repeatedly raised the bounty, there is still no killer interested. This is my opportunity. Others are worried, afraid to take action, but for Lawson, who has watched a movie, it is a godsend opportunity. According to the development of the plot, as long as he doesn't do anything, the textile factory will self-destruct due to internal strife. The only thing Rosen needs to do is to ensure that Sloane, Fox, Wesley, and the Cross don't die prematurely due to the butterfly effect, which could ruin the plot and cause his mission to fail. Gudong. With a slight movement of his throat, he finished a whole can of cold beer, and Rosen felt a wave of contentment all over his body as he walked towards the bedroom, intending to fall asleep. Tomorrow morning, we still need to return to the textile factory as soon as possible. After all, the place where guild members are stationed should be the safest now. Rosen thought to himself that he had agreed to the request of the Cross and would naturally pretend to give it a signal that he intended to fulfill the agreement. Moreover, in the textile factory, it is also convenient for him to observe the development of the plot at any time and take further actions. New York. Brooklyn District. Williamsburg. In the 17th textile factory, the weaving machines were roaring, and many workers were busy carrying out their daily work amidst the noise. In the innermost office of the textile factory, the atmosphere at zhaoshuyuan.com was completely silent. One of our brothers betrayed us. Union leader Morgan Sloane looked around the crowd, feeling very unhappy. Fortunately, he was black himself, and his face was already black. Otherwise, his expression would be so ugly. No need for me to say, I believe you should already know who the person who didn't come today is. Sloane didn't play any tricks, didn't give everyone time to guess, and said directly, that's right, it's the Cross. The only reason he chose to defect is because he is greedy for life and afraid of death, unwilling to follow his own destiny. Speaking, Sloane threw a piece of fabric into the center of the table so that everyone could see the translated password. Fox's face was serious, with gloomy expressions on the repairman, butcher, mechanic, and Russian. Mr. X remained indifferent. No one can leave the textile factory, no one can break the rules that have existed in the factory for over 1,000 years. Sloane's gaze wandered around the faces of the crowd before finally landing on Mr. X's face and saying, X, you come and solve this matter, be careful, be sharp and decisive. I don't want to see that guy trouble us again. Okay. Mr. X immediately agreed, as the top visible strength in the guild, he had this confidence. Sheep can never fight hungry wolves. I will let the Cross know what it is to strike a stone with an egg. After speaking, Mr. X stood up and took big steps out of the office. Other assassins also took Mr. X's words for granted, thinking that this operation must be smooth sailing. Only Rosen at the end of the seat, watching this scene, secretly felt amused. P.S. Pure newcomers, kneeling down to collect and recommend. Chapter 5. A large order of $1 million. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rosen is the only ordinary person among the assassins present, without any special abilities. He was able to sit here also because of his efforts, with a 100% task completion rate, ranking first among ordinary assassins in the organization. He made an exception to sit here as a representative and is qualified to attend meetings. Rosen thought to himself that although he is not currently a rival to this group of wall-hanging opponents, he has a system and infinite possibilities. He is destined to surpass this group of people in the future, but it will only take some time. Besides, my fate is always much better than these dying people. Rosen had no expression on his face, but he secretly felt amused in his heart. The Cross said that Sloane went against fate, and Sloane also slandered the Cross for the same reason. But in fact, most of these assassins understand the truth behind the matter in their hearts. At least, according to Rosen's observation, Mr. X must be well aware of Sloane's small actions. And it is also very likely to be one of Sloane's accomplices in tampering with passwords. Only Fox, a foolish woman who had been trained by a textile factory since childhood, was blinded by Sloane's mouth. She truly believed in some kind of deceitful tale that would stand up for the heavens, assassinate one person, and save 1,000 people. If someone solves the problem of the Cross, there is no need for the meeting to continue. After Sloane finally reminded everyone to pay attention to safety, several assassins stood up and left the office one after another. Rosen also stood up. Just as he was about to leave, Sloane stopped him. "Cleaners, don't worry about leaving for now. I have a few words to tell you." Morgan Sloane extended his finger and gestured for Rosen to sit down. Rosen felt a sudden surge in his heart. He didn't know what the old man was up to, but he remained calm and pulled out a chair, sitting across from Sloane. "Cleaning worker, how long have you been joining the textile factory?" "It's been almost 6 years. Has it been that long, don't you think?" Sloane smiled slightly and continued, "I have a new order from the Fate weaving machine, with a reward of $1 million. Normally, I should give this gold to Fox and the others, but this time, I want to ask you to do it." $1 million. Rosen was startled. His usual orders are mostly between $80,000 and $100,000, with the highest being only $300,000, when multiple goals need to be addressed at once. So, when Sloane shouted out the price figure of $1 million this time, Rosen naturally felt a wave of surprise. However, the shock was only a moment, and Rosen was not blinded by the money. His brain quickly regained its composure and asked a crucial question. "Why? Why would it be me? Do you know the reason for the Cross's defection?" Faced with Rosen's question, Sloane didn't respond directly and said to himself, "Yes, of course you know. I just talked to you at the meeting. However, I didn't finish everything at the time. Not only did the name of the Cross appear on the weaving machine of Fate, but also you, me, Fox, X, the repairman." Sloane muttered his name while taking out a small stack of translated fabric, neatly arranged one by one on the table. "Mechanists, butchers, and Russians, that is to say, all of our names appear on it, and everyone in the textile factory is spared. Do you know what this means?" Of course Rosen knows, isn't it just you, this old guy, who faked a few pieces of fake fabric? But in order to cooperate with Sloane, he still widened his eyes as much as possible, using his lifelong acting skills to force a shocked expression that was beyond words. At the same time, he was also pondering why Sloane was showcasing himself at this moment. Sloane took out the cigar box from his pocket and said, "Do you want one?" "No, I don't have the habit of smoking." "This is not a cigarette, it's a cigar produced in Cuba." Sloane couldn't help but laugh and cry, "Forget it, since you don't want it, then I'll enjoy it myself." As he spoke, he lit his cigar and placed it in his mouth. He took a gentle sip and slowly exhaled a cloud of smoke, savoring the aroma of his entire mouth and showing a joyful expression. "Listen, cleaner, I have indeed done some seemingly shameful things in the field of destiny textile machines, but all of this is for the sake of all of us. If it weren't for me doing this, all of us would have died. That is to say, I saved you all." The smoke from the cigar dispersed in the air, revealing Sloane's righteous and imposing face. "Cleaners, it may be difficult for you to accept this reality, but looking at our current power, we are stronger than ever. We use our own choices to rewrite history, our own standards to choose goals, and we allocate power to whoever we believe is qualified to gain power. This is the rule of wolves, not sheep. The code of the textile machine of fate has never been supreme, nor is it worth defending with our lives. Cleaning worker, I think your thoughts must be the same as mine. Otherwise, follow the damn opinion of that guy on the cross, kill me first, then put the gun into his mouth, and then pull the trigger." Speaking, Sloane unloaded the pistol from the gun bag and threw it directly onto the table in front of Rosen. "I've finished speaking, you decide the way yourself." "How should I choose?" "Of course I choose to let you die." Lawson, who pretended to think, had only one thought in his heart. He thought Sloane had some great ideas, and it turned out that he was just valuing his intimate relationship with Fox by luring him into the water with $1 million. However, Rosen never expected that it was just a coincidence that he slept with Fox a few times, and everyone thought he had such great charm that Fox would definitely listen to him. The cross is like this, Sloane is also like this, everyone is like this, it really makes him a bit confused. It seems that I have really become a hot potato. Rosen smiled helplessly in his heart and then said to Sloane, I took on that $1 million mission. Okay, this is the target information. Sloane smiled with satisfaction as he pushed out a craft paper bag and continued, also, as usual, $200,000 out of that $1 million has been deposited into your account as a deposit, and the rest will be waiting for you to solve the target. I will be back soon. Taking the craft paper bag, Rosen quickly left the office. Shortly after he left, another person pushed the door and walked in. Do you really believe him? The person who came in was a butcher, who was tall and strong, and spoke in a muffled voice. His gaze toward Sloane was full of confusion. I don't believe him, but I believe in money. Sloane didn't get up and continued to sit in the chair smoking his cigar, swallowing the mist. I can see that the janitor has no faith. He can't refuse my offer for a whole $1 million. But I still don't think it's necessary. The butcher sat down and rudely took a cigar from the box to light for himself, stuffed it into his mouth, and then said, after all, he's not one of us. P.S. Pure newcomers, kneeling down to collect and recommend. Chapter 6. Good weather with bright sunshine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He is not our own person after all. Sloane knows what the butcher's words mean. Unlike these assassins with bloodline, Rosen is just an ordinary person without any special abilities, and he joined the textile factory halfway through. The butcher also rejected Rosen because of this. Listen, butcher. Sloane, however, did not want the butcher to ruin his plan and said, I also hope that X can kill the cross, but if he fails, the cleaner will be our last insurance. Sloane's eyes were solemn, and the cross, Fox, and Mr. X were the three strongest assassins in the guild. Now that the cross has defected, if Mr. X's mission fails, he will have to rely on the last remaining Fox. Relying solely on cleaners may not be enough insurance. Sloane held his cigar and rubbed his chin thoughtfully, saying, You go call Fox over. I have another task to assign to her. The butcher nodded and walked out of the office to find Fox. A cleaner may not be enough, Sloane needs to add another weight to the balance. He has already investigated and found out that the Cross has a son who is currently working as a clerk in a company. After he had Fox personally take Wesley to the textile factory, it would really be foolproof. New York. At noon. Sunny and cloudless, it is a rare and beautiful weather. On the square, Rosen mingled with the crowd. He found a seat, asked the waiter for a cup of coffee, opened a newspaper, and flipped through it. His target for this mission is Evan Lewis, a male, 45 years old, former gang member. However, Evan has recently defected and became a witness in a drug trafficking case with the police, which has attracted the attention of the drug trafficking group. The group has issued a reward to the textile factory. This is my only way of getting out of the phone. Turning his head slightly, Rosen, under the cover of the newspaper, closely observed the entrance to the opposite bank. According to the information he obtained from his investigation, Evan Lewis was very vigilant and had a group of little brothers around him as protection, never stepping out of his old nest. But today Evan had to take a risk because he had to testify in court tomorrow and he needed to retrieve a crucial piece of evidence from the bank's safe. To open the bank's safe, Evan's fingerprints and iris authentication are required, which means Evan must come here in person. He's here. After finishing a whole cup of coffee, Rosen finally realized his goal. After watching Evan walk into the bank gate under the protection of his younger brother, he put down the newspaper, immediately stood up, and quickly walked into the abandoned building next to him. This building has been abandoned for a long time, filled with dust everywhere. The wooden stairs, which are in disrepair for a long time, make a creaking sound as soon as he steps on them. Rosen, who stands on top, can't help but wonder if they will shatter in the next second, causing him to fall to the ground fiercely. However, this is already the best sniper point. Rosen took a light step and carefully pressed against the wall, quickly arriving at a window. He took out the assembled sniper rifle that had already been hidden here, and after final inspection and debugging, he patiently looked across from the window. Across from the window is the bank gate, which he has already stepped on. There is no back door to this bank. As long as Evan Lewis retrieves the information from the safe, he will definitely come out of this exit. At that time, Rosen will not hesitate to pull the trigger, shoot a fatal shot, and end the other person's life. Time passes by bit, and in the scorching summer, the outdoor temperature has soared to 35 degrees Celsius. Rosen's face was sweating profusely, prompting him to occasionally wipe it with his hands to prevent his vision from being obscured by sweat. Damn it, why hasn't this guy come out yet? An hour passed, and patient like Rosen, he couldn't help but feel restless. He had to first reach out and move the tattered chair next to him with no backrest, suppressing his restlessness and sitting down to continue observing. Time continues to pass, and another hour has passed. In Rosen's gaze, he still did not see the figure of Evan Lewis, which inevitably shook his heart slightly and began to doubt whether he had lost the person. But on second thought, Rosen felt that it was impossible. He personally stepped on the opposite bank and found that there was indeed no back door, so Evan Lewis must still be inside. But why hasn't the other party come out after so long? Did he realize there was danger? Rosen instinctively looked at his system, and there was only the final 800,000 left from the $10 million lottery requirement. That is to say, as long as he completes this task and the final payment is received, he can start the lottery again. I can't miss this opportunity. The plot of the textile factory is about to begin, and before that, Rosen must use all means to enhance his strength to avoid falling into danger. If you miss this opportunity, it will be difficult to receive such a generous bounty next time. If you want to earn enough $800,000, you really don't know how much time you will waste. Zhaosuiyuan.com. Thinking of this, Rosen had to wait and wipe the sweat off his forehead again with his hands, not daring to be distracted at all. And what is Evan Lewis doing at this moment? Even half an hour after entering the bank, Evan had already taken out the evidence from the safe. But he didn't walk out of the bank gate. Although he didn't know there were assassins waiting outside, he was naturally cautious and knew that betraying the gang would definitely lead to retaliation from the gang leader. Therefore, he asked his most trusted and close friend to leave with evidence, while he stayed comfortably in the VIP room, resting with good food and drink, the small air conditioning blowing, waiting comfortably for the arrival of police protection personnel before making plans to leave. Why haven't you come yet? After drinking 5 cups of coffee and eating 3 donuts, Evan couldn't stay any longer. He asked his younger brother to call to confirm and heard that the police had sent protective personnel who were stuck on the road due to a major serial car accident. He frowned and gave orders to several younger brothers. We can't wait any longer. The bank is about to close soon. God knows when those useless police officers will arrive here. Call a little brother out to start the car, and Evan, surrounded by the other boys, strode towards the exit of the bank. In the abandoned building, Rosen felt that he was about to be steamed by the hot air. He was about to get fed up. He wanted to put down his sniper gun and go to the bank to explore the truth. Finally, within his sight, a figure exactly like his target's picture appeared. Finally waiting for you. Rosen's spirit lifted and he raised his sniper rifle. As soon as the target appeared in the sight, he pulled the trigger without any hesitation. Chapter 7. Chasing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bang. Due to the installation of a silencer at the muzzle, the sound of the gun appeared somewhat crisp, but the power of the bullet did not decrease much. It still accurately hit the target, piercing through Evan Lewis's head crisply. Clack. Evan's body fell weakly to the ground, and the young men around him were momentarily stunned before exclaiming in surprise. Rosen, who had confirmed the death of the target, immediately packed his gun and prepared to leave the scene. Just then, a sudden vibration came from his phone around his waist. Buzz. Buzz. Taking out his phone casually, Rosen glanced at the display on the screen. He didn't know the number and didn't want to know who was on the other side of the phone, so he chose to hang up. Suddenly, Rosen inexplicably felt that this scene seemed somewhat familiar, and a scene from the movie unconsciously came to mind. Immediately, the alarm sounded in his heart, and he rolled in the direction next to him. Bang! His movements were ultimately one step slower, as a specially designed bullet struck from a distant distance and instantly hit Rosen's body. Rosen let out a muffled groan in pain. Although he avoided the fate of being shot in the head due to his early avoidance, the powerful power of the sniper rifle still allowed the bullet to hit his shoulder, almost shattering his entire right scapula. Thanks to the bulletproof clothing he had been wearing, otherwise the consequences would have been even worse. Fuck. Unable to help but curse, Rosen knew that it was not advisable to stay here for a long time. The enemy was in the dark, and I was in the light. Staying here would only become a living target. He endured the excruciating pain and stumbled downstairs, as the damn staircase seemed to be against him, collapsing with a click. Unfortunately, Rosen missed a step and bumped back and forth between the old staircase floors, falling into a mess before finally descending to the first floor. Whew! Taking a deep breath, Rosen leaned his back against the wall and looked at the exit of the building, his brain thinking rapidly. I can't just walk out like this. Evan Lewis's headshot was right in front of him, and if Rosen didn't want to end up in that situation, he absolutely couldn't leave from the main entrance. Furthermore, even though he was lucky enough to avoid enemy snipers, the massive bleeding from his right shoulder wound alone was enough to kill him. Fortunately, I still have this treasure. With a thought, Rosen extracted a prop from the system and it appeared in the palm of his left hand. That is a green bean, with an inconspicuous appearance that looks no different from ordinary broad beans. But only Rosen knows that the name of this bean is Xian Do, which is a magical food from the animated Dragon Ball. Cultivated by the legendary cat fairy who resides on the Carling Tower, one can stay hungry for 10 days and have extremely strong healing power by eating just one. It can be said that regardless of the severity of the injury, as long as a person is not dead, they can instantly recover their physical strength and energy, and readjust their body to its optimal state. Unfortunately, I only have this one. This fairy bean is a prop that Rosen obtained from the system lottery for the first time. In his previous career as a killer, he suffered various injuries of all sizes, but still didn't want to eat it because it was so precious. Rosen has always had an idea, which is to try to use the fairy bean in his hand to study how to plant it and harvest more fairy beans. For this reason, he also specifically went to the largest library in New York and borrowed many books about botany. Unfortunately, Rosen never gained anything, and of course, this is also very normal. The cultivation method of fairy beans has never been shown in the entire Dragon Ball series, and from beginning to end, it seems that only the cat immortal can do it, even the protagonist Wukong and others cannot. As for Rosen, there is no need for delusions. Forget it, don't think so much. Hand the fairy bean to his mouth, lightly touch his teeth, and Rosen will eat half of the fairy bean. The other half will be retrieved from the system's prop column. A whole fairy bean can recover all injuries and stamina. It does not need to recover stamina, so it only eats half of it, leaving the remaining half for the next opportunity, in case of emergency. My body surprisingly recovered so quickly. 1 second ago, Rosen saw that his shoulder was still bleeding, but the next second, it immediately returned to its original state, with the broken bones inside growing back together. He moved his shoulders, feeling even stronger and more powerful than before. I know the efficacy of fairy beans is very powerful, but I never thought they could be so powerful. Rosen has watched cartoons, but personally felt the effects, which is a different experience. He randomly found a room on the first floor, jumped out of the abandoned building through the window, and ran towards his Japanese Toyota car. Don't ask him why he doesn't drive a sports car, is it really like Rosen doesn't want to? Yes, of course he does, but the problem is that Rosen doesn't have any money. He has earned a lot of money, but he doesn't dare to spend a penny recklessly and has recharged everything into the system. I bought this Toyota car all because he needed transportation tools, and this car is just cheap enough. Stepping on the gas pedal while getting in the car, Rosen accelerated all the way. Halfway through the car, Rosen's waist vibrated again. He reached out to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and answered the call, then turned on the hands-free and put it aside. This time, he wants to hear what the person across from him wants to say. Fox went to find my son. On the other end of the phone, there was a somewhat dull sound from the cross. Rosen did not answer and silently continued to drive the vehicle to escape. You broke your promise and chose the wrong path, cleaner. Now, we can only become enemies. After the cross finished speaking, without waiting for Rosen's response, he immediately hung up the phone. Rosen's heart tightened. Even before this mission, he had thought that the cross might find him. But at that time, he believed that the textile factory had already dispatched Mr. X, which would inevitably involve the energy of the cross. As long as he made a quick decision, he could safely solve all of this. But what he didn't expect was that a little Evan Lewis wasted so much of his precious time that the cross directly discovered his whereabouts and fell into the current terrible situation. Sweeping through the rearview mirror, Rosen noticed a black Mustang sports car relentlessly approaching at an extremely high speed. This won't work. The speed of the black Mustang sports car is by no means comparable to that of Rosen, a broken Toyota. He gritted his teeth, grabbed the steering wheel with one hand, and with the other hand holding a pistol, leaned out of the car window, pulling the trigger repeatedly towards the sports car behind him. Bang bang. The flying bullet pierced through the front windshield of the sports car, causing some obstruction, but it was only temporary, and the cross quickly caught up with it again. And this time, the cross also drew its pistol and fiercely counterattacked Rosen in front of it. Chapter 8. Successful Escape. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the streets of New York, two cars, one in front and one behind, are engaged in a fierce chase. Wukong glanced at the rearview mirror and saw Rosen heading in a rough direction, emptying the entire pistol magazine in one breath. He didn't have time to change the ammunition, so he casually threw the pistol onto the passenger seat, opened the storage box, and took out a Glock 26 pistol. He then charged towards the black Mustang sports car behind him, shooting wildly. Bang bang. The front windshield of the Mustang sports car was hit by bullets and had several large holes. The cross looked expressionless, so he grabbed the steering wheel with one hand and slammed forward with the other hand, completely pushing out the windshield that obstructed his view. Then, the cross picked up the pistol again, and the heart in his chest beat wildly at a rate of 400 beats per minute. In his eyes, time almost stopped flowing at this moment, and everything around him entered slow motion. In a state similar to bullet time, with a flick of the wrist of the cross, the trigger is pulled, and two bullets are fired from the barrel in succession, passing through a strange arc in the air and instantly hitting the two tires on the right side of the Toyota car ahead. Damn it! Rosen couldn't help but curse, but still couldn't change the outcome of Toyota's tire blowout. Seeing a sharp turn ahead, he had to grip the steering wheel tightly, relying on the driving skills honed in two worlds, past and present, and charged forward with lightning and sparks all the way. Unexpectedly, after finally passing this big bend, a worse situation appeared ahead. The New York police have received the news and dispatched several police cars to pursue the vehicle. One of the police cars drove straight into front of Toyota from a fork in the road and applied a sudden brake in an attempt to intercept the Toyota car in this way. There was an ambush in front and a pursuer at the back. Rosen was furious in his heart. Not only did he not slow down, but his right foot slammed on the gas pedal and directly controlled the car to collide, charging fiercely against the back of the police car. The New York police never expected Rosen to be so brave. In a moment of carelessness, the police car lost balance, shook left and right for a while, and finally crashed into the garbage bin on the roadside with a loud bang. They reluctantly withdrew from the arrest operation. Continuing like this is not a solution. Rosen quickly realized that Toyota's performance was not as good as the Mustang Crusader. Now, with 2 more tires bursting and a significant decrease in speed, it seems unlikely to last long and will eventually be caught up with. He observed the nearby road conditions and, upon discovering a small alley on the roadside, stopped thinking too much and turned the steering wheel sharply before driving a Toyota car into it. This alley is very narrow, and there are many homeless people and beggars living here, piled up with a large amount of debris and garbage. The Toyota car only drove a short distance forward and could no longer continue, completely stuck here. Rosen decisively got off the car and looked left and right. When he saw a beggar not far ahead, his eyes lit up. He immediately strode over, took out a gold coin from his pocket, and threw it directly into the small iron basin used for begging in front of the beggar. Clash! The crisp sound made the beggar who pretended to sleep open his eyes. He glanced at Rosen and immediately understood. He made room for Rosen to lie down, then quickly got up and took out a tarpaulin from a simple small house made of garbage, covering Rosen tightly. After finishing all of this, the beggar sat back in his seat, pretending nothing had happened, and continued to lean against the wall, holding his arm and sleeping with his eyes closed. Da-da-da. There was a sound of footsteps coming from the alley, and soon the cross arrived. He looked forward and did not see Rosen's figure, so he dared not act rashly. He picked up his pistol and cautiously continued walking inside to prevent a possible surprise attack. Walking up to the beggar, the footsteps of the cross paused, and he turned his head to observe the pile of raised garbage, seemingly sensing something. Just as he was about to go further and reach out to figure out what was hidden under the garbage, the cross's gaze suddenly froze, and the beggar in front of him was gradually reaching his hand towards his chest. Meanwhile, in his spare time, he also noticed that several homeless people around him had already climbed up from the ground, hiding their hands behind them and slowly approaching towards this place. The cross frowned. He had already caused enough trouble and couldn't continue to provoke anyone. The few people around him clearly had guns at their disposal. Although he was confident in taking down these guys, he was bound to get hurt under the pincer attack. Not to mention, behind him, there is a group of little tails called New York Police. If there is a loud gunfire here, the New York Police will definitely arrive immediately, and then the real big trouble will be. Without much entanglement, the cross turned around and quickly left this small alley. Who? After waiting for a while, it was confirmed that the cross had completely moved away and could never go back. Rosen then lifted the tarpaulin covering his body and sat up, breathing in fresh air. "Thank you, brother." Patting the beggar's shoulder, Rosen pulled out another gold coin. These gold coins are issued by the high table and serve as circulating currencies in the assassin world, not linked to the US dollar, pound sterling, or any other currency in the world. But according to the rules of the assassin world, with just one gold coin, one can enjoy a service at the Mainland Hotel under the banner of Gao Tai Table. Zhaoshuyuan.com in Assassins, it is equivalent to an agreement, which means that if someone accepts this coin, they must complete something according to the other person's wishes. The previous gold coin given by Rosen gave him a chance to hide, but now this one is bought from a beggar brother and replaced with a gray suit stained with blood. For the textile factory, it's better not to go back for now. As Rosen walked, he pondered, Sloane moved Wesley, which undoubtedly completely angered the cross. Now that guy will definitely keep a close eye on the textile factory and try his best to save his son. So, the most important thing Rosen needs to do right now is to find an absolutely safe place. After settling down, we will urge Sloane to settle the final payment as soon as possible so that he can recharge the money into the system and see what kind of changes this lottery will bring to him. Since the cross attacked me, he must have figured out where my family lives. Rosen shook his head. Now, there was only one place he could go, and he was certain that it must be the safest place in all of New York. Looking at his Toyota car, Rosen pursed his lips. 2 wheels had blown out tires, the rear windshield was shattered in a mess, and the car was riddled with bullet holes. Rosen estimated in his heart that if it were sent to a repair shop and repaired, the price would be enough for him to buy the same car again. Forget it, there's no need for rescue at all. As he was about to leave, Rosen gave the beggar another gold coin. He did not doubt the other person's abilities because he knew that they, like him, belonged to the power of the gang Bowley Street. Just a rundown car, it can be easily disposed of. Chapter 9. Mainland Hotels. You are listening at novelfull.audio. New York. Mainland Hotels. Mainland hotels are service organizations under the jurisdiction of high tables, distributed around the world, and adopt a membership system. Only members can enjoy the hotel's various services, and the most important service is protection. That is to say, assassins are not allowed to work in hotels, which means they are not allowed to kill people here. Once a violation is made, one will face expulsion and disqualification from the organization. Without qualification, one will face even more tragic consequences, which is automatically entering the bounty list and becoming the common enemy of all assassins under the control of the high table. For this reason, Rosen arrived at the Continental Hotel. He walked through the revolving door and entered the lobby of the hotel, only to find that today's Continental Hotel was particularly quiet. There was not even a voice to speak, which was surprisingly quiet. He looked around in surprise and found that all the assassins were looking in the same direction. Rosen followed everyone's gaze and his heart suddenly tightened. Because the man in a black suit who appeared at the front desk was undoubtedly John Wick, the famous God of Killer, and nicknamed Barbara Yaga in the world of assassins. Barbara Yaga, also known as Granny Yaga, is a witch in the legend of the bear. She has a very ugly appearance and lives in the forest, specializing in eating lost children. As long as you are targeted by Barbara Yaga, no matter how you try to escape, you will eventually be caught by Barbara Yaga. The assassins use Barbara Yaga to refer to John Wick precisely because the other party is ruthless, purely persistent in completing tasks, and never gives up until they achieve their goals. I don't know who would be better off with John Wick's marksmanship alone, without considering other factors. As he watched John Wick leave, Rosen was lost in thought. Wen has no first place, and Wu has no second place. They all work in the field of assassins, and Rosen cannot help but feel a bit of comparison. John Wick was certainly very strong, and had a glorious record of stabbing 3 enemies to death with just one pencil. However, Rosen believed that his marksmanship, which he had trained from childhood to adulthood, would not be much inferior to his opponents. This is evidenced by his proficiency in intermediate firearms in his systems skills column. However, Rosen will not be blindly confident, and if he really duels with John Wick, the outcome may be difficult to say. After all, Rosen's debut time was very short, only 6 years. In contrast, John Wick was already a well-known assassin in the world of assassins when he first joined, and his experience was so seasoned that Rosen could never match it. However, even the renowned John Wick is probably not a match for the Cross. Thinking of this, Rosen shook his head helplessly. For ordinary assassins, people like the Cross are like cheating. Even without the ability to use bullet time, just the skill of turning bullets with one hand is enough to complete the kill. And this is also the reason why Gao Tai Table is offering a reward to the textile factory. After all, there are at least 7 assassins like the Cross in the textile factory. Can Gao Tai Table not be afraid of this, and not be afraid of it? After the assassin in front finished his business, Rosen took a few steps forward and started checking in. How about arranging 2 nights for you? The hotel butler, Sharon, greeted with a smile. He was a black man, but he didn't look like his fellow countrymen who always caused riots. On the contrary, Sharon wore a suit and tie, wore a pair of golden glasses on his nose, and always wore a gentle smile on his face, which made people feel good when they met. Rosen was not fooled by Karen's appearance. He had watched a movie where he saw the enemy holding shotguns and repelling a large number of invaders in the Battle of the Continental Hotel, which was by no means a fuel-efficient lamp. Let's see, we may stay a few more days. In response to Karen's question, Rosen continued, which room was John Wick staying in just now? Sorry, sir. According to hotel regulations, it is not allowed to disclose other guests' room numbers. Karen smiled and refused. Rosen understood that the other person might be mistaken and said, "It's not what you think. I just hope that my room can be further away from him, preferably as far as possible." Ah. Karen was taken aback, seemingly having never heard of such a request before, but still maintained good professional habits. While receiving the gold coin, he handed out a door card and smiled, saying, "Room 911, I wish you a pleasant stay." "Thank you." Nodding his head, Rosen politely thanked Karen because he came empty-handed, without any luggage, and did not need the help of a waiter. He went straight to the elevator and pressed the 9th floor. As the elevator door was about to close, a woman's voice sounded outside, "Please wait a moment." Rosen held down the elevator door button and allowed the woman to enter the elevator. Coincidentally, the other person's room was also on the 9th floor. The elevator door closed again and slowly began to move up. Neither of them spoke, and Rosen, feeling extremely bored, glanced at the woman a few more times. He must admit, that woman is indeed very beautiful. Even after so many years in Marvel World, Rosen is still the soul of the East at heart, and his aesthetic is somewhat different from those here. North American people like sexy bombs with hot bodies, straight chests, and upturned hips, just like foxes. Rosen, on the other hand, prefers long hair, slim waist, long legs, delicate facial features, and a slender model figure while maintaining a curvy and graceful appearance. Just like the female assassin in front of him, she perfectly fits this point. Unfortunately, this woman is going to die soon. Rosen has recognized the identity of this female assassin. After all, there are not many women in the assassin industry, and a woman as beautiful as her is even rarer. Perkins. If Rosen's memory is not mistaken, then this is the name of the female assassin. Next, the other party will assassinate John Wick in a mainland hotel because they have taken the order to deal with him. After the failure of the operation, he was called outside by the hotel manager and sentenced to a crime for breaking the rules of mainland hotels. He was then shot and executed. TSK TSK TSK, how unbelievable it is to dare to take on the order to kill the god of killing. Rosen muttered to himself. John Wick first lost his wife, then his dog, and his beloved car was also damaged. In the end, even his few remaining friends died one after another, including the manager of a mainland hotel in Osaka, who couldn't resist John Wick's terrifying protagonist aura. In Rosen's past life, this type of person was often referred to as the heavenly Sha Lone Star, and was born an unlucky existence. So, when booking a room, Rosen explicitly requested to stay away from this killing god, just to avoid being affected by bad luck. Now that someone is actively seeking death, Rosen can only curl his lips, give up his feelings of helping others, and respect the other person's fate. Chapter 10. Wow, Golden Legend. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ding. On the 9th floor, the elevator door opened and Rosen took the lead. He took out his exit card and unlocked the door, then strode in. No matter which world you are in, if you want to live for a long time, you need to meddle in other people's affairs. Rosen is very clear about this. After entering the room, Rosen didn't rush to use the system lottery. He first went to the bathroom, filled the bathtub with hot water, and dropped a few drops of lavender essential oil, intending to relax and unwind later. It should be said that today has really devastated him. First, he was almost dehydrated and collapsed after being exposed to the hot sun for most of the day. Then, he was shot black and his right shoulder wound was bleeding profusely. Even though he recovered from the injury with half a fairy bean, the psychological fatigue was not easily eliminated. Taking off his clothes, Rosen lay in the bathtub, surrounded by hot water, feeling incredibly comfortable and relaxed. The faint scent of lavender also eased the nervous system in his brain, making Rosen squint his eyes comfortably. It should be said that the bathtub is indeed a good thing. After soaking for more than 10 minutes, Rosen's exhaustion dissipated and he felt like he had finally come to life. Reaching out for the white towel hanging beside him, Rosen wiped off the hot sweat on his face, dried his hands, opened the laptop that had been placed on the shelf in advance, tapped the keyboard, and logged into an internal website. "What's going on, cleaner? You've made too much noise." On the other side of the website, it was the head of the textile factory, Sloan. Although the news on the television did not cover it, Sloan still knew what had happened during the day through internal channels of the killer world. "It's okay, Evan Lewis has already been taken down. Rosen doesn't want to talk too much about this matter. Being chased after is not something to be proud of. What about the drug trafficking evidence in the bank safe?" "I don't know, the cross came too fast, and I was already very lucky to survive. Besides, there is no requirement for evidence in our contract." After Rosen finished typing this line, there was no new message appearing on the computer screen for a long time. Just as he was impatiently waiting and wanted to give Sloan a direct call to ask for clarification, Sloan's response finally appeared on the screen. "Forget it, the final payment has already arrived in your bank account. Go check it yourself." Sloan's movements were quick, and in just a little while, Rosen's phone received a text message notification from the bank. He nodded in satisfaction and typed the keyboard to send the message. "After this mission, I will go back in a few days to avoid the wind first." Sloan on the other end looked at it and expressed understanding. Leaving aside the hidden cross in the dark, just driving and shooting on the streets of New York was already challenging the authority of the New York police. Of course, with the protection of mainland hotels, the New York police are nothing, but at least they need to give people some face, right? Anyway, Rosen can't just swagger down the street right away. At least he'll have to wait for 3 or 2 days. After the storm clears and the New York police find a scapegoat, he can resume his life safely. After lying in the bathtub for more than 10 minutes and feeling the water slowly cooling down, Rosen lazily stood up. Water droplets rolled down his body, and Rosen looked at himself in the mirror. His features were tough, his face was handsome, and his figure was strong. The scars, big and small, not only did not make people feel ferocious and ugly, but also highlighted the masculine beauty of a man. Not to mention the expensive pendulum below, Rosen could definitely be called a friend of women and a perfect lover of the masses. Let's first see what kind of surprise this lottery will bring me. Remembering the 800,000 yuan he had received, Rosen put on a towel and walked out of the bathroom. He sat cross-legged by the bedside, closing his eyes to check his system. Name: Rosen Tanatos, age 26 years old, skills: firearms proficiency, intermediate, close combat, junior, possessing props. Kalen Ferry's Ferry Bean, half, Idagawa Conan's criminal tracking glasses *1, with a sticker transmitter attached. Over a period of 6 years, Rosen conducted 2 lucky draws using the system, and the first time he won a Ferry Bean, saving his life. The tracking glasses I drew for the second time are also very good. After putting them on, as long as the radius is within 20 kilometers, no matter where the person marked by the sticker transmitter runs, they will be displayed, which can be said to be a very practical prop. The results of the 2 lottery draws were both very good, which made Rosen feel that his luck was quite good. After all, he checked the system's lottery pool and found that whether it was character cards, skills, or various props, even leftover food from eating, drink bottles from drinking water, or worn socks, in short, anything that has appeared in an animated film, even if there is only one shot, can be caught by him. Rosen was fortunate enough to draw 2 useful items from millions of possibilities. I hope this time, my luck will be as good as before. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, silently praying in his heart, Rosen recharged $800,000 from his bank account into the system. As Rosen watched the system lottery wheel continue to rotate, he was both looking forward to it and a little curious. Where did he go to recharge so much money into the system? Is it supporting the starving African brothers? Or did you do some charity work? Rosen couldn't understand the principle of the system, but he always felt that his actions must have alleviated the inflation of the US government to some extent and contributed greatly to preventing the arrival of the world economic crisis. According to this principle, it's a bit unreasonable for Nobel not to award him a peace prize. Putting aside the joke, Lawson eagerly watched the system as the speed of the lottery wheel's rotation gradually slowed down, and the pointer on top slowly stopped in an area. Wow, the golden legend. A golden light shone in his sight, and Rosen's heart suddenly jumped wildly. White, green, blue, purple, and gold, 5 different colors, represent 5 different categories of prizes. According to the information provided by the system, white is the most ordinary in low dot level, usually some miscellaneous garbage. As for whether it has any utilization value, it is entirely up to fate. Green and blue represent props that have appeared in animated films. The rarity of blue quality is higher than that of green quality, and the effect is also better. Purple, on the other hand, is a set of skills that come from characters in animated films. These skills may be some kind of superpower, or they may simply be useless historical academic achievements. They are also a reward for luck. And now, the gold that Rosen has drawn is the top prize in the lottery wheel, representing a complete animated character with all the abilities of the opponent.